Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. It's great to speak with you once again, and I just first want to ask you how you were marking this solemn occasion, this anniversary of what happened in Charlottesville last year.
Well, by being very active in my community, of course. I am glad that there's so many people out there protesting against racism. The idea that they're getting ready to have this march that will be right in front of the White House. You know, I was disappointed by the president's tweet where he talked about he was opposed to all forms of racism. To me, that was just code to say I am not going to oppose white supremacy, where he is appalled by NFL players who take a knee to protest police abuse. I don't see any of his protesting about the Nazi flags that will be paraded right near the White House in just a few hours.
You bring up that tweet. The president has not made a public statement about this. He hasn't said anything more explicitly than that about what happened in Charlottesville last year. I wonder if you think there is anything more he can do. In other words, have you given up on this president to say something at all unifying about lessons learned from what happened last year?
Well, I think the president has a 40-plus year history of appalling behavior on race and making racist statements. I mean, how many years did he talk about where President Obama was born, asking for President Obama's transcripts? Your previous guest talked about the Central Park Five, his history on housing discrimination. So I don't know why we would expect anything different from him. His attacks on Latinos, he has been very, very consistent. The way he talked about African-American communities. So I don't know why we would expect anything different from him. I would love to think that one day he would recognize that he is supposed to be the president for the entire country and not the president for his base.
Congresswoman, you're talking about his history with race. It's something that we heard about this morning, as well as one of his former advisors, Omarosa Manigault-Newman, sat down with my colleague Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press. Let's listen to what she had to say.
Sure.
I have heard for 2 years that it existed, and once I heard it for myself, it was confirmed what I feared the most, that Donald Trump is a con and has been masquerading as someone who is actually open to engaging with diverse communities. But when he talks that way, the way he did on this tape, it confirmed that he is truly a racist.
Congresswoman, what do you make of all of this? Omarosa, who has known Donald Trump for well over a decade now, sits down to write a memoir and has a moment of awareness, I guess. Her eyes are opened to what the president is really like. How do you react to what she said there and what she's been saying about the president and race?
Well, the only positive part of it was that she acknowledged her own complicity in his behavior. I could care less whether he used the N-word ever in his life. His history of racism is clear. It's well documented. We try to couch it by using different words. He's insensitive, etc. She has known all of this. But what is disappointing is that when it came to her personally being fired, and the issue in the Situation Room was very interesting. I've been in the Situation Room before, and you're not allowed to bring phones in there. So I guess clearly Chief of Staff Kelly was concerned about being taped. But I think that it's disappointing that she rests everything on his use of one word, and that when it personally affected her, that's now when she's willing to speak out. So the only legitimacy to me of what she's saying now is that she was complicit for years, defending him, and not just defending him, but attacking anybody who was critical of him.
Here you're talking about the tape that Omarosa brought to NBC's Meet the Press today. She said it was recorded in the White House Situation Room, a SCIF, a secured location where you're not supposed to have a phone or a recorder. She says it's a tape of her talking with John Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff, about her future in the administration. I want to pivot here, if I could, to talk about the midterms in the last few moments that we have together. The Cook Political Report is out with its prediction of what's going to happen here in the midterms, looking at House seats up for grabs here. 62 seats up for grabs. You were paying close attention, I'm sure, to what happened in Ohio last week. I know you're paying attention to what's going to happen here in just a couple months' time when voters go to the polls in those midterms. How does what happened this week cheer you or change your perception of what's going to happen here come November?
Well, I think it certainly gives us a sense that we are on the verge of taking back the House. Now, I don't want to take anything for granted because we thought something was going to happen in 2016 that didn't. However, we are working very hard to make sure that we do have a victory in November. My focus specifically is on Southern California because we have the possibility of turning several seats here blue. But I think the fact that this race is still undecided in Ohio is huge. This is a race that we shouldn't have even been in contention for. So I think that it doesn't bode very well for the Republicans. And Trump might feel that he's going to save the day. But when he goes around the country having these rallies, one thing that he is always consistent about, the majority of the time he is talking about himself. He's not even talking about the candidates he's promoting.
The Democratic candidate in that race, in the 12th District, Ohio, that special election, has been described as a moderate. He describes himself as a Danny-crat, a different kind of Democrat. And one of the things that he ran on was that he would not support Nancy Pelosi to be House Speaker if Democrats were to get control of the House again after those midterm elections. The House Minority Leader was on AM Joy this morning talking to my friend and colleague Jonathan Capehart. Let's take a listen to what she had to say about this, about her leadership future.
Sure.
I haven't asked a candidate or an incumbent for a vote. What's important, and I know better than anybody how important it is for us to win this election. Now, I do believe that none of us is indispensable, but I think I'm the best person for the job.
Congressman, is it time for a change in leadership? NBC News reporting 50 Democrats are indicating that it might be. What do you say?
Well, let me just tell you that I heard that interview, and I think that she's absolutely right. The most important thing is for these candidates to win their elections, and they need to run for their districts. And in some districts, she has been vilified. But now, I've been in Congress 8 years, and I've heard this vilification of her for that entire time. And I think that it's getting really old, and I think that the Republicans are finding that they have absolutely nothing else to run on but that, and that is not even working anymore. We have a lot of leaders within our caucus. We have young leaders, we have newer leaders. Not everybody is a question of age. Some people run for Congress in later years. I think that there is a lot of leadership, a lot of potential, and we will see. I am hopeful that we're going to take back the House. She said she's not even going to campaign until that happens. She has certainly not asked for my vote. So we will see what is going to happen after November. I'm very positive, I'm very hopeful that we will take the House back in November.
All right, joining us today from Los Angeles, her home district, the 37th District in California, Congresswoman Karen Bass. Congresswoman, thank you very much.